Tiger Tales.
Tiger Tales presents My Teacher Glows in the Dark by Bruce Coville, read by Mrs. Griffith.
Chapter 5 of My Teacher Glows in the Dark by Bruce Coville. The Crystal Captain. As quickly as it began, it was over, and I found myself, all of myself, standing in a room that looked like it had been carved out from the inside of a diamond. Hulan was next to me. "What happened?" I whispered. Hulan looked at me in surprise. "Did you feel something?" I nodded. He frowned, which meant the same for him as it does for us. "You shouldn't have," he said. "We'll have to look into this." "But what happened?" I repeated. "The elevator took you apart and put you back together." "What?" "Don't worry. The same thing happened to me. That's how a transcendental elevator works. It breaks you into packets of energy, sends you to another place, and then puts you back together." "Wouldn't it just be easier to walk?" I asked, putting myself in various places to make sure I was all there. Hulan gave me his version of a shrug. "It's over 100 miles from the doctor's room to the captain's cabin." "Oh, well, in that case, sure. Just send my molecules," I said, wondering if the sarcasm would translate. "We did," said Hulan, sounding quite serious, "and now it is time for us to meet the captain." A tinkle of music played around me. "Indeed it is," translated my language implant. I turned in a circle, trying to find the source of that sound. "Where did that come from?" I whispered. Hulan gestured to a clear tank that stood at the end of the chamber. "What is that?" I asked. "The captain." "Come here, young earthling," said the tank. I glanced at Hulan. He nodded, so I crossed to the tank, which looked like a huge round aquarium, except there weren't any fish or plants inside. A pair of cables ran from the bottom of the tank into the floor. "Look more closely," said the voice. I stared into the tank. After a few seconds, I saw a collection of crystals, sharp-edged and many-faceted. It took me a few more seconds to realize that the shapes were slowly moving. "This is our captain," said Hulan, adding a name for which there was no translation. "But how?" A sigh tinkled around me. "Your carbon-based life forms are so molecule-centric. Until you meet another form of life, you seem convinced that carbon is the only way to grow." "Sorry," I said. "I didn't mean to offend you." The air around me filled with a sound like chimes. The implant told me this was laughter. Hulan sang the crystal captain. "I need only to speak to Peter. You may leave if you wish." "I have things to do," said Hulan, nodding to me. "I will see you soon." As he turned, he headed for the transcendental elevator. The captain's voice said, "You do realize, my young friend, that you have created a problem for us." I blinked. "What's the problem?" "In a word, you. By galactic law, no person of Earth is allowed aboard this vessel." "I thought Broxholm was supposed to bring back 5 of us," I said, feeling somewhat puzzled. "For observation and analysis only. Any memory of the experience would have been erased from your minds before we returned you to Earth." "Did you ever wonder how we might feel about that?" "Not particularly. If I had, it wouldn't have mattered, except it's our fact-finding mission. The Interplanetary Council has banned all contact with the people of Earth. This is the first time in thousands of years this has happened, by the way." "You mean it's the first time in 1,000 years Earth has been isolated?" I asked, wondering if the aliens had visited a lot in the past. "It's the first time in 1,000 years any planet has been isolated." I didn't like the sound of that. "Should we be honored?" I asked, sounding more smart alecky than I intended. "Terrified might be more appropriate." "Terrified?" I squeaked. The very fact that this captain said I should react that way came close to creating that feeling in me. The captain's voice chimed around me louder than before. "Earth is in the greatest danger faced in 3,000-year history of the Interplanetary League. It appears to be a planet in the grip of mass insanity. We must find out why you kill each other with such reckless abandon." The language implant was translating what the captain sang into words, but the very sound of the music filled me with fear and with sorrow. The crystals in the bottom of the tank shifted. "There is something very strange about your world," continued the captain. "On every other planet where science has developed, the process has taken much longer than on Earth. As always, people ready to enter space have been civilized in a way you humans have avoided altogether." The captain paused and sang sadly, "We fear if the people of Earth are allowed into space in their uncivilized state, the results could be disastrous beyond anything you can imagine." "Allowed?" I asked nervously. "Allowed. At the moment, we are considering a permanent quarantine on Earth. No one gets on, no one gets off. We don't mind you exploring your own solar system. There's not much there anyway, but we cannot allow you to carry this sickness, whatever it is, into the galaxy at large." I wanted to cry. For years I had been dreaming of meeting people from another planet. When I finally do meet some, what do I find? My planet has embarrassed itself in front of the entire galaxy. I felt like an interstellar geek. "Of course, quarantine is only one option," said the captain, interrupting my thoughts. "What else is there?" I asked, more nervous than ever. "I would rather not say. After all, the teacher does not necessarily discuss all options with the student." I wondered what the captain really meant with the enemy, but I couldn't think of it that way, the way to say it that didn't sound snotty. "Anyway," continued the captain, "you can see that your presence here creates a problem. Are you going to lock me up?" The bells that filled the air seemed to sigh. "You see, only an earthling would think of something like that so quickly. I suppose if you persist in causing trouble, we might lock you up, but that's just not something we do. However, we do have to decide what we will do with you. So tell me, what is it that brought you here? What do you want?" "To learn," I said fiercely. "Admirable. However, you must realize that the more you learn, the less likely it is that we can ever let you return home." "I don't care about home. I want to see the stars." "You could have seen them from your own backyard. I want to visit other planets. I want to explore the galaxy. I want to find out what it's all about," I cried, suddenly realizing I might be the only human ever to have that chance. "Then you're welcome to join us. You will be assigned to Hulan, who has been specializing in Earth studies of late." "How is Broxholm going to feel about that?" I asked, though for all I knew, Broxholm never wanted to see me again. "That's not an issue," said the captain. "Broxholm has other matters to which he must attend, as do I, my new crew member, which means that we must leave now. The elevator will take you to your cabin." Feeling a trifle nervous, I headed for the circle where we had come in. When I glanced back, the captain's tank had changed color. I heard the words for farewell chime through the air as I stepped to the wall. I didn't feel anything this time. None of the tearing sensation that had scared me so much on my way to the first trip through the transcendental elevator. So I figured Hulan had adjusted the mechanism for me. But the place the elevator delivered me to was so dark I was afraid that thing had malfunctioned. My heart began to pound. What if it had sent me someplace where no one would be able to find me? Some neglected storage space or something. Rooms on the ship didn't even have doors. If I got stuck in a place like that, I might die before anyone found me. I was about to scream for help when a blue light began to glow behind me. And that is the end of chapter 5. Hope you have a good night.